In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone and Gerhard Mathangani.
It's a Wednesday, hump day, but take a look at what was going down in the Bayou on Saturday. A little pregame scuffle, and if you were paying any attention to the rivalry game between LSU and Florida, you knew that this had taken place, which really doesn't surprise you at all. What you may not have realized is that one of Florida's assistant coaches was knee-deep in the middle of this, somewhere in the chaos of what was happening there in pregame between the Gators and the Tigers. Welcome in, everybody. Southeast Sports Plus. Thanks for joining us across the SEC. Simone, Gerhard, Mathangani, Patrick Walsh joining you on this hump day. A 3-game suspension for Gerhard, who is the running backs coach for LSU, Gerhard, due to his role in this situation that happened in Baton Rouge on Saturday.
It's one of those things you don't ever see. If you see a headline, altercation LSU Florida, you automatically think player. You don't think the people who are supposed to stop the fights, and that's the assistant coaches.
That's correct.
Gerhard obviously got right there in the emotions of everything. Obviously, with his history, he's played or served at both schools, and so I kind of understand why you would get into the emotions of it, but he's the guy that's supposed to be kind of one of the police that are involved, so to speak.
Yep.
And he got into it, slaps a player, and now will have to sit out for a little bit.
Yeah, and so this is a guy who followed Billy Napier from Louisiana to Gainesville. So he's like a head coach's guy. I've read that he's really, really big in recruiting. And you got to have these fiery guys at certain skill positions.
Sure.
Running back certainly one of them. Tough coaches in tough positions, right? You can't be tough when it comes to pregame situations, people, getting back and forth with other teams. There's an expectation level. Right. There's an understanding that you don't really get involved. You don't play ball with that sort of thing. And so when you look at what this came down, it came down from Greg Sankey in the SEC. Yeah. From my understanding is that it was kind of Florida and the SEC together deciding, hey, this is going to be an appropriate measure. Right. Whether or not Florida was going to do that on their own is kind of, you don't really know that, but the SEC, Florida jointly announced late yesterday, that Gerhard will miss the next 3 games for Florida. And as we know, right now the road ahead for Florida, there is no joke. I'm going to pull up the schedule because I know this is something we've talked about for a good little minute now, but here's a look at what the Gators' next 3 games look like. So at Miami in a huge rivalry game against Texas, and against Texas A&M, I mean, if there were 3 games, a 3-game slate on the Gators' schedule where you do not want to have be down a coach, I can't think of any other slate.
No, that's one of the toughest slates that you can get, and we talked about that in the preseason, and it makes it even more so now. But what we talked about with Florida going into this football game is how would they bounce back? How would they react after losing to South Florida? Yep. You knew the emotions would be involved, but for this to happen now, it's almost like you hamper yourself again. Now, I don't know how much he will have as far as scouting goes and practice and being able to. Yeah,
I'm sure he'll be relatively involved. Yeah.
Some of that stuff
behind the scenes. All that,
Right. But not having that kind of guy on game day, who it seems like he is one of the energy guys.
You can tell from that video that we just ran a minute ago that Patrick found, or the pictures and things like that. He's definitely one of those guys on the sideline. I mean, look at him. First of all, he's running sprints. Like, if you run sprints on the sideline, that you're expecting a lot of your players, and you do it because you want to show them, like, hey, this is at like youth camp. But regardless, like, he's probably doing that on the sideline there during practice too. There's no question about it. But it's not a good look. And here's where you start to really get concerned. When a coach is going to get fired, they will look for a laundry list of things beyond just your win-loss record.
That's a good point.
To try to point to for a reason for you not to have a job. And in the case of Billy Napier, not only is the win-loss record the one that's going to be at top of the list, but then you've got a guy who gets suspended as a player for acting like a fool earlier in the season. You get a coach who gets suspended for acting like a fool for 3 games. I mean, he's gone for 3 games. And you're against top 10 ranked opponents. Right. That's not a good situation, Gerhard.
Simone, I did not put that together. I didn't make these correlations that you had a player spit on a guy in week 3. Yeah, now you have a coach that's suspended ahead of week 4.
Dude, it ain't good.
It's not good, and you mentioned it because you you think of these things in isolated incidents, but when you put it all together, it does look like a guy that is losing control over the program. Whether real or imagined, it looks like that.
My dad told me this when I was young, and it is something that has stuck with me my entire life. Then I became a coach's wife, and it was only amplified at that point.
Yeah.
Perception is reality.
Right.
If people think you're losing control, if they think they can put a bullet point list of things to point to,
right,
that says, it might not be as hunky-dory behind the scenes, and you're dealing with a Billy Napier who looks cool, calm, and collected in front of the press conferences.
Right.
Oh, by the way, did we see the part where Steve Spurrier critiqued the coaching staff the other day?
Yeah.
So the other day, Steve Spurrier is talking about a different game and says, I'd really love to see some fire on our sideline, talking about coaches getting fiery. I think from Brian Kelly. I'd really love to see. Yeah, it was Brian Kelly was ripping Garrett Nussmeier. Yeah, and it was, I think, an interception or something in the program. I wish somebody would get mad on our sideline. Was the quote? Okay, is there not a statue of this guy outside in Gainesville?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's my point.
I think it's him and Tim Tebow.
My point exactly. My point. Say less.
Yeah.
My point exactly. Add that as a bullet. Actually, add that as higher than your player spitting. Yeah. Add that higher than your coach getting in a fist fight. You might want to add that higher than your win-loss record. Because if Steve Spurrier says, this ain't passing the eye test.
And think about the last regime, Simone. One of the big things about Dan Mullen going into the tail end of his time there in Gainesville was the lack of enthusiasm on the recruiting trail, the lack of enthusiasm overall. And then it just died. It died slowly because they won just enough for him to stay around for
They won pretty. They actually. I remember when he got fired.
Yeah.
It's not like it was bad. I mean, it wasn't great. They didn't like the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, someone just said, let's do something different. Let's just do something different."
Yeah.
And then they didn't, and they thought they had the next up and coming. People like Billy Napier.
Sure.
I mean, you can like somebody and at the same time think that they're not the right fit for that job.
Yeah.
And what Billy was able to do at Louisiana Lafayette, now Louisiana, was impressive. Doesn't mean it's always going to correlate. There are some, group of 5 coaches who can go do that at the Power 4 level, and it takes off right away.
Right.
I think Florida is a tough job, but it's not just because you're in the SEC and you're in the changing landscape. But come on now. But they got money, resources, talent. They got more down in Florida. You don't even have to go out of state.
Money, resources, talent, the fan bases down there, and think about the last coaches that have won down there. Urban Meyer, for all of his misgivings, won a couple of national championships. Steve Spurrier, the guy that you just mentioned earlier, won a national championship. They've had Heisman Trophy winners over there. This is a premier program. I made that correlation between them and LSU last year. They expect national championships, and the last few coaches have been able to do so. And the last few for Florida have fallen just short. And I think that's the reason why you have this outcry of everything. But winning is the biggest elixir. And they're not winning, and that highlights these problems even more.
Yeah, and I'm just going to pull this up really quick here, just to talk about Dan Mullen for a minute. So Dan Mullen was the head coach at Florida for 4 seasons. Now that last season, it wasn't great, and I have to go back to 2021 and what exactly that all looks like in terms of like 34-15. Okay, though over 4 years. Now each year it got a little bit more challenging for him, right?
It slowly declined over time.
He won the Eastern Conference title in 2020, though. I mean, that was a weird year, obviously, for the entire world. But 10 wins, 11 wins, 8 wins. And then it was the 5 and 6 year, and they really dropped off there in a little bit. And so since then, though, let me move over to my Billy Napier page. Billy Napier is 20-21.
Yeah.
In 4 years, Gerhard. 10-15 in the Southeastern Conference.
That's the number. That's the number.
And here's the deal. In about 5 weeks, that's going to be 10-20.
Yes.
If he's even there. If he's even there at that point.
Right.
And which he might not be.
Yeah.
So
I mean, but barring a miracle, and I'm not saying Jaluk would have solved all these problems, but these are just there are signs of a bigger issue there in Gainesville.
Yeah.
And I think Steve Spurrier has pointed to it, and a lot of people have pointed to it. And just the way that coaching is these days, you and I hate to say you have to fire these guys early, but the way that the calendar is accelerated is you have to make these decisions early and start working on your next guy if you don't think that this guy is going to be the coach the next season.
That's the thing is you have to have somewhere you're going to go. That's when you fire coaches, who you're going to get.
Yep.
Florida could go get a good coach.
100%.
They might just have to go up to South Florida and get him.
Maybe.
I mean, I said that on September 17th at 2:10. I just want someone record this moment so we can play this back when that happens. So, guys, we have a stacked show over the next couple of hours here, including several guests across Next Sexstar Nation. Let's take a look at some of the people we'll be talking to. As always, making her appearance on Wednesdays, talk all things South Carolina. Mariah Ross going to join us from Spartanburg. Our guy Mike Seed going to come sit on the show, make his debut from Memphis. And then Kevin Ryan's back with us from St. Louis to talk about the Missouri Tigers, who are feeling really, really good about life right now, G.
They have to be feeling really good about life. And just the way that the season has played out so far, had a quarterback battle to start. Now it looks like they have their guy moving forward. Got a big win over a rival. And let's see if they can, continue this nice little run here inside the top 25.
Yep. So coming up next, guys, we will have our repeat appearance from Mariah Ross. However, it might be the first time that we have talked about South Carolina post-loss. The latest from the Gamecocks, how they're looking to bounce back. We'll have that in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us. Rolling right along on this Wednesday, Southeast Sports Plus. Simone, Gerhard, Patrick joining you as we transition, talking the South Carolina Gamecocks. They've been on a roll this season, but a bit of a speed bump, not only in the win-loss column, but also with an injury to their quarterback. The headlines right now there in Columbia. Let's bring in our girl from Spartanburg, Mariah Ross, joining us. Mariah, good afternoon. How are you on this Wednesday, ma'am?
I'm doing just fine on this Wednesday. I cannot say the same for South Carolina fans. It is, like you said, coming into it, the first loss that they've suffered all season, and there's a lot of chatter going on, on both sides of the ball for sure.
Yeah, Mariah, a lot to get to when we're talking about the Gamecocks right now because, man, every single week that you've joined the show, and for good reason, there's been a ton of optimism. There has been nothing but really positivity when it comes to what is going on there with the Gamecock program, especially at quarterback with Lenora Sellers. What is the latest on the injury that he sustained in last week's game that, of course, ended up being a targeting call that forced him out of the first half of that game against Vanderbilt?
Yeah, unfortunately, there hasn't been much of an update in all of the press conferences that have happened since the game. Beamer is very close-lipped about, the status of Sellers at this point, saying that we'll find out Wednesday night. So I think around 8:10 Eastern time, 7:10 your time, we should get an answer on whether or not he's questionable or able to play. But at this point, we're not even sure whether or not he's practiced since the injury. So still a lot of question marks surrounding him, which definitely leaves fans feeling a little bit uneasy.
We've seen some backup quarterbacks come in throughout the course of the last few years in college football and in the NFL, and they always try to breed the backup quarterback as you stay ready so you don't have to get ready situation.
Right.
South Carolina scored 7 points against Vanderbilt. What did you make of the way that the offense responded despite losing their starting quarterback, and what do you think they'll have to attack this week in case Sellers isn't available?
Yeah, well, Luke Doty is their backup quarterback. He's a sixth-year guy, so he's been in the system for a long time, knows how the offense works. However, it is obviously a little bit different under new offensive coordinator Mike Shula. As for how they responded, Beamer talked after the game about just the lack of response that they had. He did not like the way that they closed out the half, didn't like the way that they started the second half, and just really said that obviously that goes back on him as the head coach to get his guys ready. But the mood was pretty bleak going into that second half after Sellers went down with an injury. So the mood in practice is really just to, like you said, next man up and get ready so you don't have to, or stay ready so you don't have to get ready, and just really go into it with the optimism that they started the season with.
Mariah, if there is a so to speak, a silver lining in terms of the scheduling to when this could have taken place, South Carolina, nobody is easy in the SEC right now, but South Carolina is going to go play at Missouri, return home to play Kentucky before the bulk of their schedule really takes off into the SEC. Not to mention there's a bye week that's going to be smashed in between those two. So we're talking LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and that 4-game stretch. If there is a silver lining, just looking at it from top to bottom in terms of the SEC is everyone can beat anybody. There's no question about that. So there's no diss on Missouri or Kentucky. But if you're going to line this up some sort of way, this is certainly a positive situation for the team right now.
For sure, I would agree with that. I think also going into the Vanderbilt game, we were saying something kind of similar.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they came out and played the way that they did. So, like you said, it's the SEC. Everybody is tough competition, but that is a little bit of a silver lining. And hopefully in that time, they're able to boost the offensive line and play better there. They have gotten wins, obviously in the first 2 weeks, the loss last week. But the offensive line has not played up to par. They are not running the ball the same way that they did last season, and not nearly being as effective on offense as you would have expected at this point in the season. So hopefully they're able to work out some of those issues by the time they get to that rougher part of the schedule.
One of the things about Missouri when they walked into the league is like they have no natural rivals, and they tried to make one with South Carolina. They got the Mayor's Cup there. You just saw there on the graphic that the guys have won 5 of the last 6 games. What do you make of what this rivalry has become and just the intensity that South Carolina will play with going into this matchup, considering the fact that it has been a nice little rough and tumble over the last few years?
Yeah, well, backup quarterback Luke Doty said the big emphasis in practice is just creating your own energy. They are kind of going into a hostile environment. Not playing in your home stadium is, can be difficult anywhere, but Missouri kind of has that big atmosphere going on. So they are talking about creating their own energy. Beamer has talked a lot about just their running ability and the fact that they play so up-tempo. I'm talking about the Tigers. And so really just trying to keep up with the pace, keep the offense off the field is always the goal when you're playing a team that is able to run the ball the way Missouri is. So just, staying upbeat, creating their own energy, and not letting this rivalry be something that breeds any more, gets any bigger than it already is. They want to kind of hush the noise and, get back in the winning column.
Let's take a listen to head coach Shane Beamer regarding his practice policy when it comes to what his expectation is for guys who could potentially play in Saturday's game.
Yeah, we have a pretty consistent policy that if you don't practice Tuesday or Wednesday, you're not going to play. I just don't think, I don't care who you are, that if you don't get out there and practice on Tuesday and Wednesdays especially, it's really tough to just practice on Thursday. Practice on Thursday is important here, but it's a little bit of a shorter day, and the bulk of your game plan is in on Tuesday and Wednesday. So whether you're an offensive player, defensive player, special teams player, we need to be able to see you do something on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Obviously, preparation is a key to success when it comes to game planning, when it comes to just getting your body right going into. So it sounds as though whether the medical team were to say that Lenore Sellers would be healthy enough to play on Saturday, Shane Beamer might already have his answer. If the guy wasn't on the field today or yesterday, no one else really knows this yet unless you're inside of the program, which, I mean, tells me there could be a leak somewhere, but, I mean, who knows? The likelihood of us having at least an answer, if it's a possibility that he plays, when they announce what the injury status is tonight, that tells me the guy's been on the field unless Shane Beamer is going against his own practice policy.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's probably part of the reason why he's not saying whether or not he's practiced, because he doesn't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I mean, leaves room for question. He could come out and play, and that would be, something that the Missouri Tigers, I'm sure, are prepping for. But my guess would be more than likely, if it's a concussion, especially, that he probably won't be out there, and they'll have to go with backup Luke Doty, who, again, a sixth-year guy, someone that Beamer trusts, who he talked up all preseason, saying that, yeah, he is for sure the backup. We're not going with anybody else. We trust him. We know that he knows the offense. And so I would probably assume at this point that that's who they're going with. But, of course, we won't know for sure until Saturday, and hopefully get a little bit of an answer tonight.
That defense got punched in the face last week against Diego Pavia, got 31 points dropped on them. What do you expect to be their response this week going up against another really strong quarterback in the SEC?
Yeah, well, that defense has been on the field a lot in these first 3 weeks. They haven't won the time of possession battle, the Gamecocks, all season. They've been on the field offensively only about 24 to 25 minutes, leaving the defense on the field a bulk of the time, 35 to 36 minutes. And so those guys are working on their conditioning, making sure that they're staying ready. But of course, the motive is to get off the field on thirds downs, create situations in first and second down where they're getting tackles for loss, they're having the chains moved back for the opposing offense. And so they're really just trying to work on the little things to make their game play better, but it's definitely a situation where they're going to have to be getting off the field more often than they have been recently.
Mariah, before we let you go, I want to talk about the other team that you cover very closely, of course, the Clemson Tigers, and what is kind of going on with Clemson. What is going on with Clemson?
Yeah, that's a great question. What is going on with Clemson? Dabo had a lot to say at his press conference yesterday. I'm sure, everyone has heard at this point. It's kind of made the rounds in the news cycle. I was actually just talking to our sports producer, and he was saying one of the things Dabo is really good at is deflecting the blame from his team onto himself. And, however you want to look at it, he is very good at doing that. And a lot of the conversation yesterday was a look back at him and his record and the things he's accomplished with Clemson, rather than the focus maybe being on Cade Klubnik, who could have easily, been the target of some of that conversation, the fact that they are 1-2. But yeah, it's what is going on with Clemson. They are full of talent. And so to have this 1-2 record coming into the season with the expectations that they did, it's not looking good. It's not looking great.
Mariah, I know the Clemson fan base is getting a little impatient with Dabo. You did mention that, he's always very outspoken to the media about everything. He did speak a little bit about his future in Clemson and the fans kind of wanting him gone. Could you see Clemson actually moving on from Dabo anytime soon?
No, I don't see that happening.
I love you, Mariah. I really do. No one tells it like it is better than you do, ma'am. I'm telling you.
I try, and just to be honest, telling it like it is, I find it interesting that, we hear so many coaches saying it's day to day, game to game. We're focused on this season, not looking at last season, not looking ahead. It's right now. But as soon as they get a little bit of criticism, the conversation becomes look at my record. And you can't deny the record that Sweeney has at Clemson. They've had an incredible run with him. They've won 8 of the last 10 ACC championships and, 2 national titles. He's done great things for Clemson, and that's why I don't see them moving on from him. But, they have to start winning. The expectations that they came into this season with were huge, and all of the talent they have on that team, they have to start winning ball games. But I don't think Dabo is going anywhere anytime soon.
Mariah, I got to ask you before we go, going into this game against Syracuse, Syracuse is a 17.5-point underdog. I don't know if you know this, but Patrick Walsh grew up a big Syracuse Orange fan, and he tried to tell us.
I was at the game.
I knew he was going to have to pipe in, but I just want to let you know he was convinced that Syracuse would beat Tennessee. Okay, earlier this season, all right, he was just hell bent that was going to happen. All right, he was wrong, dead wrong, and I'm not going to even ask him as a prediction on this. What is your outlook for this Syracuse Clemson game going into week 4 of the season?
I do not put anything past any team, honestly. Crazier things have happened. And it's the same thing we said last week with Georgia Tech. You know, Clemson should have won that game, but if they walked away with a loss, I wouldn't be surprised. And I kind of feel the same way about Syracuse. Obviously, there is a little bit more of a fire under the Clemson Tigers, considering the fact that they have a losing record at this point. But I wouldn't put anything past, whoever comes into Death Valley.
Mariah's not about that locker room talk, y'all. She's like, I am not going to say anything in this program or otherwise that is anything above, everything's going to be above board. I'm not going to get posted on a locker room wall because I said this and have someone use it against me. I love you for that, man. I really do.
Mariah, I'll chime in here. I was at the game in 22 when DJ got benched at halftime, and I believe it was Cade's first game that he actually got action in. I could be wrong on that, but it was definitely very early on. I think that was Cade's freshman year, and at halftime I was like, oh man, Syracuse might actually win this game.
They didn't. They didn't. For the record, I just pulled it up. 27-21.
But where was I going with this?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that I popped in on my screen the second that you said I thought they were going to win. They did not. So sorry, Patrick. I just wanted to make sure I could burst your bubble at least one more time about Syracuse on this program.
It's all good. At least your guy, Peanut Butter and Jelly, is the leading passer in the nation.
In the country.
What? He is?
Second year in a row, Syracuse has had a guy lead it.
He's already come over 1,000 yards.
Well, is that just from a play calling standpoint? Because that's not like their win-loss is reflective of that.
Here's the Syracuse calling. Throw it 50 times a game, win the game.
Well, they feel good about themselves right now, though, right, Patrick? I mean, they're feeling good about life at the moment, aren't they not?
We'll see if Fran Brown gets a shower.
And Cade Klubnik does not look the same as he did last year, so there is that as well.
That's true.
That's accurate. All right, Mariah Ross joining us from Spartanburg. We appreciate your time, ma'am, and look forward to next week as we recap this big game against Missouri and South Carolina. What will it look like at the quarterback position? We'll find out for the Gamecocks here in just a couple of hours, maybe tonight. So thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. See you next week.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Southeast Sports Plus rolling right along in our first half hour of the show. Much more to come, guys, as we continue to look at the SEC slate for week 4. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
The state championship in the state of Florida is always going to be one of the highest goals that we have. These guys play against each other. The fan bases, alumni bases, they're at it all off season. There's a lot of there's deep meaning to it, so certainly very prominent.
Going to be a big one between the Hurricanes and the Gators, as it often is, as Florida and Miami go head-to-head. Gerhard, and two programs right now that are really trending in the opposite direction as far as this season. And there have been moments in Mario Cristobal's time there at Miami where I did not think he was going to make it past the 0-0 after a game. And there's been a couple moments like that, but a lot more right now for Billy Napier as of late. However, regardless of where you stand in a season when it comes to records, when it comes to in-state rivalry games like this one and like many others in the SEC and beyond, the record, you can throw it out the window because the bragging rights on the line, how it feels to fan bases, what it means to the players in the locker room goes well beyond what a record looks.
It always does, especially in the state of Florida where it's a really unique situation where you do have Florida playing Florida State at the end of the year. Florida State and Miami play, and then Miami and Florida will also play as well. So you have a really interesting dynamic between these three universities that occupy two different Power Four conferences all being able to play. And of course, Simone, the biggest thing, the absolute biggest thing for any of these coaches and players is all about recruiting and who can have the most going, I would say energy and enthusiasm going into the recruiting. And that's the reason we talked a little bit about Dan Mullen and how recruiting fell off a little bit. A lot of that was because of Florida State was piling up a little bit. And Miami has been, and they've all had their cycles, but Florida has 3 national championships. Miami has 5 and Florida State has 3, but none of them have one in a very long time.
Yeah, they're all a little bit dated, no doubt.
It's been a while for all 3 of them. But it does open up a bigger conversation about which state championships do mean the most, because Florida obviously it does.
I love this. Yeah, and then when you look throughout the SEC, there's several examples of in-state games that are very, very meaningful. And I think each of them comes with a different dynamic. Some of them are fueled by a deep hatred for one another. Some of them are fueled by just a deep, almost like respect. It's a friendly, like brother, sister, I'll never like you, really, but I love you type. Like, I don't know, not really love, but you know what I'm saying? You bond over the fact that it's your neighbor and you don't really want to like burn his house down, but you might egg it. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to like hurt the guy, but you might do enough structural damage that he's going to have to, at least write a check that's going to cost a decent amount for paint damage. So I feel like that's kind of what some of these in-state rivalries look like.
You spoke way too specifically about that. It makes me think that this was part of your past at some point.
I egged the house once, okay? I don't want to talk about it, okay? It was not good. It was not good. We also put chocolate syrup on a car. And so, listen, if you've not done that once in your life, you probably didn't live properly as a teenager.
Was this your time at Bowling Green?
It was not. No, if I was doing this in college, Patrick, that was you in college. This was
not
me.
me. Whoa.
This was me as like a 6th grader. This was me in my adolescence, being stupid and doing some ridiculous things because I thought toilet papering was just not enough. I felt really bad.
You talk about your time at Bowling Green and how much you hate Toledo. I just didn't know if you ever went.
That is accurate.
Just chuck one.
Might be the best in-state rivalry right there. Honestly, now that I think about it, that's it. There you go. Best in-state rivalry. But really, guys, when you think about the SEC alone, okay, we don't have to look very far from where we're currently sitting, right? Alabama and Auburn, the Iron Bowl, the deep tradition in the Iron Bowl, right next door. The Egg Bowl. Gerhard, we know what that game entails. When you look at the SEC, there's plenty of others, and they're meaningful as well.
Yeah, they certainly are. And I really like the ones that are SEC on SEC, but also SEC on other conferences. Just because we had just Mariah on a moment ago. South Carolina and Clemson play at the end of the year. That's another intra-conference or inter-conference matchup. You also have Texas, which I thought was really interesting because we talked about this with Roger Wallace.
What did he tell? I cannot remember. What did he say about the dynamic between Texas and Texas A&M versus Texas and Oklahoma?
I'm paraphrasing, but he said almost like the Texas A&M one is almost like friendly. What you were talking about earlier.
That's what it was. Yeah.
It's the egging the house instead of setting the house on fire. Oklahoma is setting the house on fire, and Texas A&M it's the egging.
Listening to that back, that sounds so strong. Like wow, that was so strong.
Honestly, I thought you were telling on yourself to the state police here. It's like, make sure we're not going to put you in federal jail
for like legit vandalism.
The statute of limitations have gone up on that.
Exactly. At this point, I'm too old to get charged for anything. But no, but there's no question, guys. And so okay, I posed the question then.
Yeah.
What is the what's the word? The strongest? Which one is there? One that's more important than the other? I mean,
I have to say, and this is no bias to where I grew up, but it's got to be the Iron Bowl, because Iron Bowl has multitude of things. We've seen, unfortunately, some violent issues come from the Iron Bowl.
People got shot over. People have died over this game not that long ago.
Right.
Like within the last 5 or 6 years.
The passion runs so deep here.
Yeah.
And I think in the state of Florida, you also have to juxtapose it with the fact that, Gainesville kind of shares a football market, so to speak, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Miami Hurricanes share a market 100%. With the Miami Dolphins. You have Florida State in there. It is kind of right there in the panhandle. Alabama has no professional sports teams.
Correct.
And that's the reason why that rivalry runs so deep. It looks different from Tennessee-Nashville. Yep. Because Nashville's, you split it with the Preds fan base and the Titans fan base. Atlanta, Georgia's the same way. Georgia Tech doesn't feel the same because you have the Falcons there and you have the Hawks there. There is nothing separating Alabama and Auburn because that is their Saturday and that is their Sunday.
Yes.
And so that's the reason why
and
that rivalry
it's their 365.
Yes, exactly.
It's their every day, and that's how this rivalry is. And coming from, so I'm not from Alabama, but I've worked down here for the better part of 15 years. And you see things in this rivalry that you just don't see in other places. I grew up in the Big Ten area in Ohio, so Ohio State and Michigan, and we all sat around, and like half of my family was wearing Ohio State stuff, and the other stuff wearing Michigan stuff. They don't sit around together, and Alabama and Auburn fans, they don't even sit around together. They're like, you're not even going to go to a, you're not going to go sit at a party being an Alabama fan with a bunch of Auburn fans, the Barn, the Tide, the Bammers, back and forth. I've been called both in the same day in the same show before. People can't figure out what it is that they want. But that's one thing about this rivalry too, is when you come down here, you're not going to go very long living here without someone asking, so who are you a fan of? And if you say, well, I'm not from here, or in my case, hey, I'm not from here, and I work in the media, so I just want everyone to have a good time, they're like, that's not good enough.
Yeah,
so choose.
Right. Yes.
Just pick one.
I was asked in the first week of moving down here.
Exactly.
And what'd you say?
Precisely.
I
said you're not from here?
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not from here.
And so, but Gerhard, you make a great point that we do not have professional sports in the state of Alabama. I say we because we're based in Mobile, but there's no professional sports here. I think it's why high school athletics matters even more than it does in other places.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely think that is why Alabama and Auburn and the Iron Bowl matters more. Let me add in the fact they actually have had success. No diss on Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
Right.
Okay, and the Egg Bowl is certainly fun, and the guy pretending to pee on a ball and all or whatever it was, like whatever.
First thing that comes to my mind.
Of course, the first thing I think of every single time. And there's a lot in watching covering Dan Mullen in those days there. I mean, there was very, very impressive football being played. I feel like they don't have the history of success that Alabama and then Auburn, who recently added 6 titles that went overnight. Like, think about how many national titles these two teams have.
Yes.
It's like 50.
Right.
I mean, at this point, okay, and some of them might be the same year.
And there was a period of time, Simone, that the winner of the Iron Bowl was either going to go to the national championship or had a strong stake to go to the playoff. Like the winner of that game was going to determine the SEC West.
Years. Like for 5 straight years, the winner of the Iron Bowl won national title. Then Auburn messed it up, and then Alabama fans acted like they were ever cheering for Auburn because they were like, okay, you guys messed up the streak. Remember this? Remember when that happened? It was like 5. I think it was like 5 or 7 years. That was when I moved down here and started covering the games. I was not mad about it, but it was the 2013
It's like
game.
what's going on, little brother? Like, come on, you need to pull your own weight.
Yeah, figure yourself out. Yeah. Patrick, you're not from here. Obviously,
No.
you haven't had a chance to be inside Bryant-Denny or Jordan-Hare Stadium, and you will this season, no question. But from your perception, you've covered a lot of big rivalries and a lot of big games. You have fandom in a lot of these
covered
college
a
level.
rivalry game that just played last week. I didn't cover that game, but I've covered it in the past. But you bring up a really good point about Alabama not having any professional sports teams. I went to college in West Virginia, and like Alabama, there's no professional sports teams there. So everyone rallies around the Mountaineers or Marshall if you're downstate. But, I think they rely on these rivalries. Obviously, the backyard brawl isn't quite the same as the Iron Bowl because Pittsburgh does have professional sports. But I would argue, actually, I'm not going to argue, it's a fact that they're closer in proximity than Alabama and Auburn are.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's like 71 miles that separate the two campuses.
Yeah,
so, I mean, you don't really see that kind of hate in such a condensed area.
And the thing is, Auburn is named the closest school to Alabama.
Right.
Mississippi State is.
Mississippi State is,
and quite frankly, a lot of people have noted, like, hey, this is two sides of the state. And in the state of Alabama, in terms of fandom, you just figure this out when you've covered the teams as much as you have. It's not like it's 50-50.
Right.
We're not talking about a 50-50. We're talking everybody in Auburn loves Auburn.
Yeah.
And then there are pockets of people who like Auburn beyond that. But because of the Nick Saban effect, because of the history and just everything, people just grew up naturally, just kind of going towards the bandwagon
exactly
of winning tradition that Alabama has been.
Yes. And also, like, what I loved about it is, like, when you have, like, a sentiment of figure, like a Bo Jackson or like a Mark Ingram or A.J. McCarron, their careers and their legacies are almost defined by that game.
Yeah.
Like, you think about those games with those players.
Yes.
And also, too, I think there's a special thing, and Mario Cristobal talked about it in that soundbite, about how special it is to win in your state lines. Because when you think of Oklahoma's biggest rival, you don't think Oklahoma State. You think Texas. Same thing with Texas the other way around. I know Mississippi and Mississippi State have a rivalry, and they're within the same state lines.
Sure.
However, that rivalry, as you mentioned, doesn't produce the same amount of success. It doesn't produce trophies at the end of the year, national championship trophies, Heisman trophies, and stuff like that.
Sure.
When you take it all into effect, you take success on the field and winning within your borders.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. I think the only thing that rivals what Patrick just said is Duke, North Carolina in basketball. Not in football, but it's in basketball.
The proximity of that.
The proximity and the success of those teams and those programs winning championships. But on the gridiron, to me, it's got to be Alabama and Auburn.
Yeah, and I do think that when we go multi-sport, because I do think that if we're just talking straight up college football, okay, I think it's hard to rival, literally pun intended, the Iron Bowl. Talk about basketball. I mean, the Iron Bowl of basketball that we've coined, because recently these two teams have actually messed around and been around in the Final Four and actually had success.
Number one overall seeds and all that.
Yeah, that's like fun, and people talk a little, smack and all that stuff. Nothing will ever carry the weight of a Duke, North Carolina when it comes to college basketball.
Correct,
I don't care. There's no argument there, and I won't even entertain the idea. And there are actually several examples of basketball rivalries beyond the Iron Bowl that I think would carry way bigger weight. And a lot of that is, like you mentioned, because of the success of those programs.
Right. And I think you have to marry those two. You have to marry what makes a good rivalry. Two things make a good rivalry, in my opinion. How much, whether it's hate might be too strong of a word, but how much if they're invested in from the fans' perspective, and then how much success do those programs produce? Because we've seen Alabama and Tennessee. That is a rivalry, but that's the second-tier rivalry, and Bama dominated it. You see Georgia-Tennessee, that's a rivalry, but it's a second-tier rivalry, and Georgia's dominated that rivalry. And you had a long time with Texas-Ohio State. Same thing with USC-UCLA. Like, they're a rivalry, but USC has dominated that rivalry, in my opinion. So, like, you have to have so many factors lining up with one another that Florida has. But it doesn't have to the same extent that Alabama has because the Gators, the Seminoles, and the Hurricanes have done it so periodically. They dominated in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, but not much since.
I'm going to make an interesting point here because you can have your top-tier rivalries, and what I mean by that are teams that are always good and they'll always play each other, and the game will sell itself out. I think a true rivalry is even on your worst year, for either team or both teams, you're still able to sell out your own arena, stadium, or whatever. That'll be a good rivalry, I think.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, and in addition to that, I should say, is that if there is a hope that you can win against all odds, and make no mistake, the Auburn Tigers every year, and I say that because they had more recently, Alabama's had a lot more success. But if you go into that game, and by golly, you're sitting there and you're talking to your uncle and you're sitting there at, 2-7, and you're going to the Iron Bowl and you're looking at your uncle and you're like, I know our record doesn't say it. And Alabama's been number one all year since the preseason on down. And you're like, listen, Uncle Bob, I think this is the year. I think this is the year, and I don't even care what the Tide is favored by 30.5. Because we're going to get it done in Tuscaloosa.
I'll never forget. This is when Gene Chizik, the year that Gene Chizik got fired, when they went, I think, 0-8 in the SEC. That Iron Bowl. You had Auburn fans saying the exact same thing. It was like, we've lost every SEC game. But this might be the one. I really feel it. I really, really feel it.
Man, I'm telling you, there's just nothing like it. Somebody poisoned trees over this game, guys.
Yes.
They killed trees.
Yes.
And then they called Paul Feinbaum
to
brag about it.
Yeah.
And then out came the best ESPN 30 for 30 I've ever seen in my life. If you've not seen that what is it, War Tide and Roll Eagle or something like that, some rendition of those two things. Yeah. Man, I'm telling you, in the amount of sports figures, and that's what you just said a minute ago that makes this so special, is that there are sports figures, and I don't just mean Alabama figures and Auburn figures. I mean sports figures.
Yes, yeah.
That have been in this rivalry, that have then gone on to, pro levels. Or, I mean, think about like a Charles Barkley. And again, I know it's a different sport, but like there's just people that are tied to those two schools that, and I'm getting a little biased here, but I just think that sort of thing is what it just makes things in this state as special as it is.
And I think that's the reason why we said it's compounding. And yes, it does sound biased, but I think if you just take an objective look at college football and college sports, I mean, like this name creates nicknames, like the Camback and stuff like that. You just have all these little sentimental moments that really, the kick six. I mean, like you just have all these iconic moments that help dictate this part of the game. And like we said, because there are no other distractions from other sports, it gets hyper focused and hyper analyzed.
Yep.
And when you compound success on top of that, it makes a lot more sense. So no disrespect to the Hurricanes and Gators. I'm just saying.
For a really long time, when I was up in Birmingham, the CBS had the SEC. Okay, and there was never a doubt, even in the years. And there were years where Gus Malzahn, going into that game, was already out of bowl contention, and it's just wasn't going really well.
Right.
But there was never a doubt what the SEC game of the week was going to be, what the 2:30 game of the week was going to be, and that tells me that networks even knew that people even outside of the state of Alabama cared about that game.
Right.
People, the Egg Bowl. I mean, people are like, all right, let's throw on the fourth quarter and watch the Egg Bowl finish.
Yes.
Let's see what Florida and LSU are doing. Let's see. I mean, I'm going out of state. They're a little bit not in-state rivalries. Everybody's watching the Iron Bowl.
Everybody is.
Everybody's watching the Iron Bowl.
Everybody is.
Yep.
And it feels like you mentioned with the Egg Bowl, I'll say the Egg Bowl's like this. I'll say Georgia Tech to a smaller degree. I'll say Clemson and South Carolina to another degree. All three of those rivalries, it feels like when one team's up, the other one's down.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
It's true.
And you hardly ever have those where it does feel equal
and the
on all
team
sides.
that's down does not have false hope like the Auburn Tigers do. Okay, and that is a fact.
So
if I could quantify it, I would. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, overreactions from week 3 going into week 4 of the college football season, and we have some good ones. P and G and myself going to talk all things overreaction in the SEC as we continue into the season, week 4. That's coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus. Final few minutes of our first hour here on the show. Thanks for joining us throughout the entire SEC here on Nexstar Nation. This is not a segment that I ever thought I'd want to do. I'm just going to be honest. And then when we started doing it, I was like, I really like this.
Yeah,
I really like this.
good.
And so sometimes, I feel like I just have some ridiculous takes. I actually renamed mine to hot takes. So it's like your like Gerhard's like takes for your overreaction and everyone's takes. Mine are my hot takes.
Hot takes.
Hot takes. Hottie, you want to say hottie? I'm fine with that. Anyway, give me your takes first.
Let's roll with it. All right. The Texas A&M Aggies are a national title contender.
Really? Giving up 41 points?
They've scored 40 points in every game so far. Marcel Reed looks really solid and a really favorable schedule. The Vols, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. If you haven't read the book from the 1930s, it's one thing's really good and one thing's really bad. The offense tops, the defense is terrible. And my third one, welcome to the Heisman house, John Mateer, the best quarterback there in the SEC, completing 70% of his passes, 5 on the ground, 5 through the air, 4 on the ground. Mateer, he's in.
What was that first one? I got so taken aback by the volunteers.
National
sorry, it was so ridiculous that when I came into my ear, it went out the other side so quickly that listen. I like what Texas A&M did. I mean, even though I like Notre Dame personally, I like what they did. I like what they showed, I should say. But make no mistake. Was it not this same guy on the show not even a week ago sitting there saying, Marcel Reed can't go on the road? Marcel Reed can't do this. He's too young. He's this. Yada, yada.
So what happens what happens when he proves you wrong? You overreact. That's a segment.
Can you at least say I was dead wrong? Because the whole time that he was literally carving those folks up, I was thinking the whole time.
I was, yeah.
Gerhard, literally. We'll see how it took go Wednesday this week for him to actually admit it, though.
It's still Texas A&M. They'll still find a way to go 8-4.
Listen, I mean, and that's a possibility. I would love to look at the schedule. You know what? Before I even look at the schedule, let me show you my hot takes. Because look at this one right here. You might freak out when you show this one, but here's your Texas, 4 losses in the SEC this year.
Ooh. Wow.
Texas, the preseason #1 ranked team, 4 losses in the SEC. Count them, guys. Here we go. Let me tell them to you right now. Oklahoma, Georgia, A&M, and it's going to be one of the other two, Arkansas or Vandy.
Arkansas.
I'm telling you right now.
They played Ole Miss.
I said Arkansas or Vandy. So their wins. So for me, they're guaranteed SEC wins. Looking at the schedule, I've got Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Florida. Okay, I think they'll win those 3.
So you're saying like basically that the wheels will fall off after that second loss in the SEC, and then they'll lose to either Arkansas or Vandy.
No. I mean, no. So they play Sam Houston.
Yeah.
And then they go play at Florida. And I think they're going to win that game.
Right.
Then I think they're going to lose to Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. That was they played him. That one. And then I think they beat Kentucky to get back on track. They probably beat Mississippi State. Everyone's feeling good about life. Okay. Then they lose 4 straight to end it.
4 straight's diabolical.
4 straight is wild.
There's no way Steve Sarkisian's gone if that happens.
3 or 4. And they go Vandy, Georgia, Arkansas, A&M. I think they lose 3 or 4. I thought because I had Oklahoma as the other loss. 4 losses. 4 losses. Oklahoma, and then 3 of the 4 in the last. They go Vandy, Georgia, Arkansas, A&M.
A lot of love for Vandy.
What I'm saying it's not an unimpressive. It's not even a lot of love for Vandy. I'm just looking at the schedule. It's got to be Vandy or Arkansas because their guaranteed wins for me are Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State. Now, I could be completely wrong and Texas can win the national championship. But have you watched that offense?
Yeah, it hasn't looked good. It hasn't looked good. But I just think it's
I mean, they're not, unless I'm not, you know what?
I think it's just growing pains.
Maybe they need to put in KJ Lacey. Anyways, back up quarterback. Okay, last year, Tennessee I think wins the championship game. Ole Miss in the playoffs. That's what I got.
I don't hate the last
Ole Miss
one.
with
I don't hate the last one.
Lane Kiffin's TikTok.
It's hard to say Tennessee wins the SEC championship game after they just lost to Georgia.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Do you think Georgia's going to go unbeaten? What are your takes, Patrick, before he and I just continue to argue for the rest of my life?
Here we go. This is a bad year for quarterbacks in the draft. I mean, I thought last year was bad. I feel like this is going to be even worse. It feels like across the board, everyone's just playing bad.
That doesn't sound like an overreaction. It feels like a statement of fact.
LSU still wins the SEC, even if Brian Kelly
oh my God, this last one.
Shoes away.
I quit listening on the second one.
Billy Napier, I'm sorry, man. You're gone this week. And honestly, I thought Jabbar Jalouk was going to be the interim head coach until what he did this week.
Hey, don't put that one. No, you might put that as your overreaction, but I might be wrong because he's going to be there either. In fact, he might not even come back. He and Billy.
They might be both.
They might just go set sail somewhere on a yacht off the Florida coast.
All that buyout money.
We'll be right back, guys, for hour 2.
Outbound transmission?
Affirmative.
Crew ready?
Check.
Signal lock?
Check.
Downstream stations online?
Linked and locked.
Let's light this candle.
Flame on.
In 3, 2, roll show open.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone and Gerhard Mathangani.
Sure, we do this all the time, but generally on a Sunday afternoon when we meet with the team, we do two things, and we always start off with not our standard. We always start with a negative, and the not our standard is Georgia wide receiver, right, arrested for driving 900 miles per hour over the speed limit, right? That's a weekly occurrence. So that's one of those, like, we'll show.
Wow. Shots fired by the Memphis head coach going into this one. Patrick, I was floored when I heard this. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus, by the way. Breaking down everything right ahead of a big weekend here in college football. What in the world is Memphis head coach doing?
I really don't know, but when I was producing the show last night, I sat there. I'm like, okay, here we go. We got a good game this week, Memphis and Arkansas.
Yeah.
And then I see this. Memphis head coach takes jab at Kirby Smart. And I'm like, oh, man, what could this be? And then I go and listen to that.
Ryan
I'm
Silverfield.
like, my guy, what are we doing here?
That is, wow. I mean, just taking straight shots there at Georgia about, obviously, reckless driving, and some Georgia players have had some issues with that. Okay, let me ask you this, Patrick. Is this like a bridge too far? Like, did he go too far with this, or is it still in kind of good, clean, in quotation marks, fun?
I don't even know anymore, because I feel like coaches in general have gotten a little bit too comfortable with the media, just going off, saying everything. I mean, Eli Drinkwitz at SEC Media Days, let's get the 30-team playoff going. Let's go on here. But, I mean, I got to give him credit. He's definitely riding high. They're 3-0 to start the year. They welcome Arkansas to Memphis.
Right.
I think we've talked a couple times on the show about Group of 5 teams going – or SEC teams going to Group of 5 stadiums rather than it the other way around. But, I think it's going to be a good game this week. Obviously, they're not playing Georgia. But I'm just interested to see what Kirby Smart has to think about this whole thing.
Well, I mean, and it felt so out of nowhere, right? It felt like, okay, so this is he's trying to frame it as not our standard. He could have went a lot of different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Way more generic. But to go that specific with that team, with those conditions that they've had so far, with drivers for people for their team, obviously driving, and one, and the reason why I was asking you if you thought it was fair or not, one ended in death. You know what I mean? Like, so there's some. It felt uneasy, but at the same time too, it just obviously taking a shot. But it lets you just know that the history of the rivalries in the South overall, and as you mentioned, Memphis is not even playing Georgia.
It's like, what in the world is going on here?
But he just happened to take a shot at the Georgia team. I wonder if Arkansas, is thinking this week, you know what? Let's get some vindication for him, and maybe the Bulldog Nation is calling, saying, hey, if you can run it up by one more score, what's the line on that game?
Oh goodness, we gotta look at that.
I wonder what it is, and I would let me just cold guess. I'm cold guessing.
Here we go, cold guessing. Both of us.
I say 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns against Arkansas. Okay. Memphis 3-0. Group of 5 guys rated them as second best Group of 5 team yesterday. I would say probably 13.5.
13.5. Okay, I'm going 2 touchdowns. You're going 13.5. Let me pull it up.
Actually, no. I changed my mind. 16.5.
Wow. No.
No? Oh,
8.5.
Oh boy.
8.5. So
Man, they're dissing. They're dissing Arkansas.
They're giving Memphis a fighting chance in this one. I mean, that's obviously right over the line of 2 possessions. So, but like you said, that game is at Memphis, and and Memphis is undefeated going into that matchup. That is really, really interesting. Let's circle that game as far as a game to put a little wager on, because I can see either Memphis winning outright or Arkansas crushing them by 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? I don't see any difference. I just see literally an outright upset or a blowout. But the only blowout I see is Arkansas's way, not Memphis's way. So that's honestly a really interesting matchup, really interesting game there in Memphis going on this week. And obviously, you mentioned how some coaches have gotten way too comfortable. Just overall, but I do think also too, we live now in a place where microphones are in their face all the time. So it used to be they had their own private life, and then they come out, and then it's public life, whether it's whether it is a press conference setting or a radio show setting. Now it just feels like their whole life is on record somewhere, because everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got a microphone. Yeah,
and I mean, social media nowadays is just it is the way of life. But I was like thinking about this quote. It totally reminds me of something we just hear in the off season when things are slow. Somebody's just trying to get their name in the news. But I mean, week 3.
Or
going into week 4, like what are we doing?
It feels a little early. It does feel a little early, and I know you had something about Kirby Smart talking about this particular incident back in 2024 about obviously dismissing players. If you have that, then we can roll with it.
We can roll with it.
So let's listen to Kirby Smart Media Days 2024 talking about what Coach Silverfield was talking about moments ago.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is disappointed. Anytime you have a situation like that, you want your kids, your players, to make better decisions. And I always say you can't be outcome related, and I'm very disappointed in the outcomes, but I am very pleased with our process we've put in terms of education, driver safety, requiring defensive driving, education, talking about it, having leaders stand up and talk about it, bringing speakers in and talk about it, suspending players, dismissing players, which we've done. I don't know to this point any coach in college football that suspended a player for a driving citation. We have. And we've also dismissed players based on driving citations. Nobody's done that. So hopefully they get the idea and the information, but we have a really good locker room, and I feel really good about that. Like, I love the players we have. I love the locker room we have. We have good kids. We got 45 kids yesterday battling breast cancer golf tournament to raise money. So we got kids that go to Camp Sunshine, the entire team. We do a lot of good things, but not representative of what we want when they make mistakes like that.
Kirby obviously defending the guys that are doing well for his football team, and also talking about the punishments they do give to those guys that Coach Silverfield was talking about. And like you said, I think Coach has got a little way too comfortable. Speaking of a guy that's been very, very comfortable with the media, with himself, with his football team, has been Diego Pavia. He's riding cloud 9 right now after making a bowl game last season, coming out really shocking the world. The Vanderbilt quarterback now, he has a big win from last week over South Carolina. Has his team now in the top 25, and making a little bit more news here, Patrick.
Yeah, everyone knows nowadays about his lawsuit about junior college not counting towards NCAA eligibility. Right. He is still fighting. His lawyers are still fighting for him to return in 2026, but he came out on Twitter yesterday and said he is not going to return. But I think it's interesting, though, that they are still fighting this, because they're not fighting it for him. Right. They're fighting for the future.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he came out and said, no, I'm done after this year, which, I mean, if he has a good year, if he continues his good year, he could get drafted.
Yeah, absolutely. He could raise his draft stock there. Greg Sankey has talked about this a little bit before about having guys have those extended stays. But like you mentioned, this fight it's almost, the players aren't unionized in college football, but it feels like if there was a head of the union, it's kind of unofficially Diego Pavia. He's kind of headed this surge, I would say. Helped change the JUCO rule, and has another a big eligibility battle going on right now as well. So this feels really interesting.
I think you were on the IR Monday when I said something to Simone about this. I think I said he reminds me so much of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
it's just a swag he brings.
Yeah.
Now he's not. The skill set is nowhere near,
right.
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we'll see a Baker Mayfield for a while.
No.
But I mean, just the way he handles himself, that confidence he has, it just reminds me so much of Baker.
Yeah, and like Baker, it almost took the right team for him to find a fit.
Right.
Because it felt like in Cleveland, it was the right fit for a little while. They made the playoffs. He won a playoff game, but then it wasn't the right fit for a while. It feels like Diego Pavia and Vandy are just like made to be with one another because, I mean, obviously Vandy sits right there in the middle of Nashville. That is a glamorous, expensive, flashy, show-me state. And I know it is as it relates to country music, but also as it relates to superstars in general. And it just feels like he's made a name for himself both in and outside of the sport. And then also making some headwaves as far as, like this lawsuit, filed an injunction and a lawsuit against the NCAA over eligibility. And he could be the face of what college sports looks like, moving forward, which I find super, super interesting about him. And like Baker uses a lot of his mouth, but also
a lot of talk.
He's backing it up.
Yeah,
Baker's backing it up right now in Tampa in the NFL, and right now Diego Pavia is backing it up in Nashville.
Everyone counted out Vanderbilt at the beginning of the year because, headed by Diego, they do all the talking. The Birmingham Bowl rings get released. But, I mean, here's a Vanderbilt team that's ranked for the second straight year. And then our guy Julian said Hunter versus Hunted.
Yeah.
They might actually become the Hunted.
I mean, as of right now, and this is still early on in the season, but they have probably one of the best, if not the best tight end. They have a really good quarterback. They have a coach that has this team set kind of on the right standpoint. We all thought going into this season this would be a hangover year because of everything that happened last year. But so far, so good for the guys in Nashville right now. Now, can they sustain that? I'm not sure. But it has been really, really interesting. But there has been a program in Nashville on that campus that has had sustained success.
Yes.
And that's the Vanderbilt baseball team.
What they're known for. Vanderbilt is known for baseball. But, head coach Tim Corbin, he's not letting his guys wear the Vanderbilt logo. They've got to earn it.
That's really interesting. This reminds me a lot of football where there are some schools and our middle school did this but our high school did not, where you had to earn the logo on your helmet beforehand, but by the time the season started everybody's uniform, so whether or not you earned it or not in camp, it's almost a hierarchy of like when you're able to get it. But that's a really interesting thing from Tim Corbin, who probably now sees maybe a sense of entitlement or whatever with this new generation of players. I'm not sure what it is, but he's now saying, hey, now you have to go earn this. Just because you sign a scholarship paper that says Vanderbilt on it doesn't necessarily mean you get to wear the Vanderbilt hat.
Well, I also think that Vanderbilt was for a long time the best program, best baseball program in Tennessee, and now I feel like that's slipped away to Tony Vitello in the Vols. I've actually had an interaction with Tim Corbin back in my it was an online interaction.
Do tell.
Back in high school when I was doing my here's my stats, here are my metrics for baseball. I knew I was never going to Vanderbilt. I knew I was never going to make the team, but I at least got an email back.
Okay.
And while it was just the coach speak, hey, Patrick, really appreciate your interest in the program. Here's a few camps, but, camps in recruiting, that usually means like, hey, yeah, come pay us money. We'll look at you, but, we're not even going to actually look at you. But
yeah, we're not going to give you a scholarship, but we might tell our buddy who's this coach at this other school that might like you.
Yeah.
But at least you got the response, though.
Yeah, I also reached out to Gary Gilmore when he was the head coach at Coastal Carolina. I didn't get a response back there. For the longest time, I wanted to go to Coastal Carolina.
You picked some good programs, though.
Yeah.
Because Coastal and Vandy have both hoisted national championships.
What was it Gretzky said? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
I just
true. Threw it out there.
Wise words. I love it. So as a baseball guy, I got to ask you, do you like that or no? Do you like the earn your logo or no?
Yeah, I feel like baseball, it's a little bit different than football.
Yeah.
But I do like it because it's more baseball tests you as a team more than anything. That's why you look at the MLB and the games or the season's 162 games, because you can't judge a team over like a 10-game stretch. Absolutely. Because I mean, you could win 10 games, you could lose 5. I mean, and that's why I think there should never be a winner take all. As much as I loved the single game wild card for as long as it was, it should never be a winner take all, because you got pitching rotations. You could have your best guy go out and have his best game, or you could have your best guy go out and throw his worst game.
Right.
You know, I think baseball is one of those sports where there needs to be a series.
It has to be a series, and I'm with you, and I get why baseball does the one game, just to create that intensity, and the NBA does it as well with those playing games and stuff like that. But I'm with you. It is a team sport, and this is a way to kind of galvanize your team. Hey, when do you get your Vandy logo? We'll find out when some of those younger guys get that Vandy logo. Coming up here next on Southeast Sports Plus, we'll talk to a couple more guests out of Next Star Nation, breaking down some big games around the SEC. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, breaking down a lot of great games around the world of college football and in the SEC. Patrick Wallace, Gerhard Mathangani joining you. Our friend Simone Eli on assignment. We let her go for this second hour here. But doing some work here for us is from the Next Star Nation. Joining us right now, Mike Sadie. And Mike, you've been there in Memphis for quite some time now. You have a really interesting dynamic because, here in Mobile, obviously we cover we're kind of a tri-state market here, but you get to cover a lot of programs both in and out of the SEC. First off, welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. Let's talk about your background just a little bit as you make your maiden voyage here with us.
Well, thanks, guys. I've been here. December will be 28 years, and I got here before the Grizzlies got here. That'll tell you how long I've been here. But it is, you can use the word unique, but you can also use the word tremendous sports market because we sit here right on the mighty Mississippi, WRAG. So we're just a bridge away from Arkansas, who's making the trip to Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium on Saturday. But we also cover the Tennessee Volunteers and then Mississippi State and Ole Miss out of the Magnolia State, and then our Memphis Tigers. So we get the opportunity to cover 5 teams as local teams because the fan bases here are just tremendous for all of those 4 SEC teams. And that's not even mentioning the Alabamas or the Georgias. There's so many fan bases that have called Memphis home. So it's quite a unique sports market. It makes my job so much easier because there's just so much excitement over so many different teams. But right now, the way Ryan Silverfield and the Tigers have this football program going and what Penny's doing with the basketball team, Memphis Tigers are beating that chest because they know that they're the talk of the town right now, even though the SEC takes priority on a lot of different days.
Mike, we just talked about Ryan Silverfield's comments about Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs. What did you make of that whole interaction?
I laughed because, when you're the Tigers, and anyone who's followed Memphis knows that they're one of the best group of 5 teams, and everything that they've done in the $225 million they've put into the stadium and what they've done with their facilities and the programs, I have no idea how teams continue to pass them over when it comes to realignment and things like that. So, you know what? When you're Penny Hardaway, he's done it with all the smoke and things like that when he first got here. And now if you're Ryan, any opportunity you have to grab the spotlight, and here's a week where you're playing Arkansas out of the SEC, any chance that you can grab that national spotlight where people will be talking about Memphis, why not? And he took a little dig at Kirby Smart in Georgia, and let's be honest, Georgia has had its fair share of problems in that area. I just think it was one of those zingers, one of the little bit of shade. But I think more than anything is, you know what? There's never bad press, right? So Ryan Silverfield got the Tiger name out there, and now it's going to go from that to, hey, they're 3-0. Hey, look out! They beat SEC teams here before, and now they get Arkansas, who's coming off that tough loss to Ole Miss. So you know what? Good call by Ryan to get that Tiger name out there.
And you teed this up perfectly because they made a statement. They've made statements on the field before, but now they're making a statement off the field in coaches' comments there, and they have another chance to make a big statement on the field again. As you break down what's to come here for the Tigers, getting ready for this big matchup against Arkansas, what do you make of the matchup and some of the ways and some of the things you'll be looking for specifically as the Tigers and Razorbacks go head-to-head?
Well, if you look at this Memphis team, first of all, they don't really get an opportunity to take on the SEC. And now that's getting even harder with the SEC's decision a couple of weeks ago to go to a 9-game conference schedule. This Arkansas series is a 3-game series. Well, they've already moved next year's game that was supposed to be in Fayetteville to 2030. And then there's another game set for 2028. We don't even know if those games will be played.
Right.
You don't know how many chances you're going to get to see an SEC team here, because let's be honest, if you only have a chance to schedule 2 teams that are not in the SEC or another Power 4, are you really going to pick a Memphis Tiger team that has been playing so very well over the last few years? So it's a great opportunity. And also, oh, by the way, the last 5 times a Power 4 team has come into Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium since 2015, all 5 have lost. Wow. Ole Miss twice, Mississippi State, Kansas, and UCLA. So the Tigers have dialed it up when they've had an opportunity to make a statement against a Power 4 team since 2015. But this, obviously, the biggest test of the season for the Tigers. Chattanooga, Georgia State, last week against Troy. They're 3-0 for the 3rd straight year. Okay, but this is what it's all about. This is the game. I know that they got Tulane coming up, who's been playing well. They got some great American Conference games still to come. But this is the game the Tiger fans have scheduled, or I've circled, because we're going to find out a lot about what this Memphis team can do. A Memphis team that has 70 new players on the roster from just last year. That's what the portal's all about. So they've taken 70 new guys. They had 2 starters coming back this year. we're going to find out an awful lot about this Tiger team, and especially quarterback Brendan Lewis and that ground game offense of the Tigers here in just a matter of days.
We talk a little bit about the group of five and this the kind of a unique situation that all of them are in. And I think what you just said about Memphis highlights this, because South Alabama is just down the road for us. We also cover Troy and Southern Miss and a few others. And we see this mass exodus, whether it's guys that are, leaving to find other opportunities to play at maybe quote unquote lower programs, or teams that have snatched them up out of the program, out of the portal to go to the Power Four. How do you think Memphis has handled it so far, just given this new wave? Because they're not the only ones. Obviously, there's several other teams that are in the same category in the group of five having to deal with all of this. What do you think that Coach Silverfield and this crew has done in this changing landscape of Power Five versus Group of Five conferences?
Well, I think the one thing, and again, we don't know how long this is going to last, because the Power Four is always trying to find a way to make sure that they keep most of the money. But as of right now, there's a Group of Five element to the college football playoff. You got 12 teams, and one is guaranteed to a Group of Five team. So if you're one of those guys that's looking for an opportunity to move from the Power Four where you're not playing very much, hey, you know what? That Memphis program, they've won double-digit games the last 2 years. Right. They're one of these programs that if we can go there, and now it's the American. Boise State got beat by, South Florida out of the American. The American looks to be the league this year that's going to get that Group of Five invitation to the playoff. So if you have that doorway, instead of going to the Power Four, not playing much, and are you really going to get in if you're the 6th or 7th best SEC or Big Ten team? Maybe. No, but you might have a better shot of going in the American door or going in the Group of Five door, which gives you a chance to play in the playoff. That's why I think that's one of these things. That's the bell cow, or what the teams in the American are doing is look at us. If you look at Tulane, they're one of 8 teams in the country that already have 2 Power Four wins. Right. And they beat Northwestern, and then they beat Duke last week. And then you got Memphis that's playing well. Army's not going to make it, but obviously they have a power. And then South Florida went into the swamp and beat what's a now not very good Florida team. But at the moment, it looked like a very, very big win. Look out for the American. Whoever wins this conference, Navy's playing well. They're going to be the team that I think gets into the playoff this year. It's not going to be a Boise State or anything like that. So that's why I think it's important for the Power Five and what Memphis is doing. Hey, if you don't want us in realignment, well, we're going to be the best Power Five. And as long as things don't change, we want to be that team that has an opportunity to play in the playoffs, because, oh, by the way, then you can't stop us from playing an SEC or a Big Ten or an ACC team. You'll be playing in the postseason.
Put your hand on the crystal ball for a second. Let's just say they do get that invite in the near future to join a Power Four. What league do you best see them not only being able to succeed in, but makes the most sense for the university?
Well, from the university's perspective, obviously it's the Big 12 in terms of location, and which again leaves me shaking my head. It was just about a month or so ago with FedEx and AutoZone and some of the big name brands that you have in college football in the country. The university approached the Big 12 and said, hey, you know what? How about we give you $200 million and we'll also not take any money for 5 years. And then in 5 years, if we haven't amped up the conference in your eyes, you just let us go. Right. So to me, I don't see how that was a no-lose proposition for the Big 12, and they still said no. So again, I know it's about TV eyes and the TV market. I mean, we're a top 50 market, but I don't know what you can ask of the University of Memphis over the last 3 or 4 years. They've been turned down by the Big 12 over and over again. We don't know what's going to happen with the ACC. There's some programs in that conference that are not happy, obviously. But, I just don't know what else Memphis can do. But if it was to happen, I would think the Big 12 would be the right match. But how many times is the Big 12 going to say no? And the other thing is the new look Pac-12 obviously approached Memphis about joining it. Yeah. And Dr. Ed Scott, our new AD for about a year and a half now, said, that wasn't going to work for us, because you think about the travel as they mismatch that conference. A lot of people were like, what? You're not, that's going to be that's why they call it the Power Four. I mean, the Pac-12, the new look Pac-12 is still not in that aura of joining the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12 and those kind of things. But I really, for Tiger fans that have that have paid the price of doing everything that's been asked of them,
right,
and then trying to give away money and going to FedEx and AutoZone and saying, hey, will you back us with sponsorship deals? And they've done everything and have still been told no. Somebody's going to get a good team whenever somebody says yes.
No question. That's why I posed the question to see if the Pac-12 is still the Pac-2 or 5 or whatever they're going to be, if that was still an option, but it looks like the door's been certainly closed on that. Mike, I think this is really interesting because you do, like you said, you cover Ole Miss and Mississippi State as well as the Memphis Tigers. What do you make of the two schools there out of the state of Mississippi? I mean, there's lots of energy and passion and excitement going on right now. You mentioned the Rebels' big win over Arkansas last week. What do you make of Lane Training Company and what Coach Jeff Lebby's doing over there in Starkville?
You know, a lot of people might have questions about Lane Kiffin, and, you know, you lose Jackson Dart. They're another team that is reloaded through the transfer portal, always do, but they didn't need it as much as they needed it this year. And they go to Kentucky, not a great Kentucky team, ugly, but Kentucky came into Oxford last year, and that loss, along with the Florida loss, kept the Ole Miss Rebels from making the playoffs with all of those stars.
Right.
You know, Kiffin goes and, you know, Austin Simmons is banged up with a bad ankle. We're like, oh, he's going to play. And then here's a guy out of Division II Ferris that's won a national title, and Trinity Chambliss goes up and puts up 415 yards and 3 touchdowns against an Arkansas team that I know is struggling on defense. But this guy went out and goes, oh, I don't care that I went from Ferris to the SEC. Lane Kiffin just knows how to coach offense, and it doesn't matter who's under center. They just have to not lose the games that they're supposed to win.
Yep.
Tulane now comes into Oxford on Saturday. That is a very good Tulane team. You're not supposed to lose to the Wave. Arkansas is not supposed to lose to Memphis. But those are 2 games that the American is going, come on, guys. If you can do this, then that momentum keeps building. But I've always been a Lane Kiffin guy. Their defense is getting better with when you start 7 transfers on a defense that was so good last year, shore up a little bit of the running game. Kentucky ran for a bunch, and they're not a very good football team. And then you go to Jeff Lebby, who's already won more games than he did last year.
Right. Yeah. Right.
2 last year, 3 this year. But Mississippi State fans will tell you they haven't played anybody.
Right.
And they don't have it. They don't have it this week either. Northern Illinois, I know, upset Notre Dame last year, so be careful. But you got a team that's probably going to be 4-0, and then they're at home at Davis Wade next week with the Tennessee Vols coming into town that have just lost to Georgia, and they're miffed, and they're going to pound UAB this weekend. But when the SEC season starts, they went 0-8, or they went 0 for the conference last year. That's when we're really going to find out what Jeff Lebby is doing with this team. Blake Shapen, he played a few games last year, got hurt, didn't know that he was even going to come back. And then he hits that big touchdown pass to knock off Arizona State a couple of weeks ago. So if you're in Starkville, the cowbells are going crazy. But I think we're going to have to wait at least one more week to see how they perform against what is a very good and very mad Tennessee team.
And one thing before I let you go, we got to talk a little bit about Tennessee as well, because you live in this great melting pot. And you said at the top of this conversation, the fact that Memphis is so, there's so many fans that are from so many different areas. And I feel like Nashville's that way, and Knoxville is kind of almost isolated. It's all UT over there. What do you make of Tennessee after their loss in overtime to Georgia, and where they stand right now, considering their defense is the best right now in the league, and their offense is the best right now in the league, and their defense is struggling a little bit?
Well, the injuries on defense have hurt the Vols. Their secondary has been banged up. You're losing an All-American, and then your defensive line took a hit with Moy, who hasn't been able to play since the opener. Josh Heupel, like Lane Kiffin, seems to be able to do it with whatever quarterback or you give him. And I think I was really looking to see what Joey Aguilar would do in his first SEC start. He's played in some big-type games, but when you go from the Sun Belt to the SEC, and Syracuse is a pretty good team, a Power 4 team, and he lit them up. What he did in that first quarter was amazing, and I think Aguilar is the right guy. And every Tennessee fan will tell you, especially when you look at what's happening with UCLA and Nico Iamaleava, talk about making a major mistake. Nico's now looking for another team. But I think Tennessee is going to be just fine. And when you're in a 12-team playoff, when the likelihood is you're locked into probably 3 SEC teams making it, you're okay if you lose to Georgia.
Right.
But you cannot make that one loss make it 2 or 3, because you get to 3 then you're probably going to be fighting an uphill battle to get in. But I think the Vols, for a season like Ole Miss, I think both of those teams, people overlooked them this year because of what they lost. And they're like, oh, they might take a little bit of a step back or really have to fight hard to get themselves into consideration. I think what we've seen is both of those teams, even in a loss for the Vols, you're like, well, maybe they're not taking as far of a step back this year as we thought. Right. And it's all out there for them. If you're Ole Miss, just do what you're supposed to do. And if you're Tennessee, be mad enough to knock off some people down the stretch. And I think we'll be talking about both of those teams as we start talking about Atlanta and the SEC championship and when the playoffs roll out. But I do want to leave you with one last thought about this Arkansas-Memphis game.
Absolutely.
Which is the craziest thing that Ryan Silverfield told me about the other day. When they roll out at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium on Saturday, Taylon Green, the Hogs' star quarterback who's been playing well, he will have played more games inside Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium this weekend than the new Tiger quarterback.
Wow.
Because he's a transfer.
Yeah.
Brendan Lewis is a transfer. He has played one game inside the Sim here in Memphis. For Taylon Green, this will be his third game inside Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. He came in with Boise State a couple of years ago.
That's right.
And Austin Genty, when the Tigers gave up 17 early and then beat that Boise State team. And then Taylon Green came here for the AutoZone Liberty Bowl in December, and he set an Arkansas bowl game record when they beat Texas Tech. But now he has played more games 2-1 to the new Tiger starting quarterback. But hey, Brendan Lewis and this Tiger ground game, Arkansas, I know, struggles with the pass, but that, if you asked me earlier about a key to this game, control Taylon Green, which no one's been able to do.
Right.
Yep.
But if they can get that ground game going with the dual threat quarterback of Brendan Lewis, like I said, they're 5-0 since 2015 against Power 4 teams, and that includes 3 wins against the SEC. Tiger fans excited about 11 a.m. Saturday.
That's a crazy, crazy stat. And let's just say that they average, 70 plays a game. That's like, 140 to 200 plays that Taylon Green's had as compared to the starting quarterback for Memphis. Patrick and I played the guess the line game because we know the matchup was coming up, but we hadn't seen the line. But both the line on the earlier matchup we talked about, but also the line on Memphis, Arkansas, that's only 11.5, 8.5 was what it was. So, I mean, it sounds like Vegas is saying, hey, this is a real chance here for the Tigers to win this football game.
Well, Gerhard, think about this, though. I may be incorrect, but when it first started, it was like a 3.5 or 4. Wow. So then it ballooned quickly to 7.5.
Right.
But don't underestimate what you've seen in the last 2 games of Arkansas this season. Taylon Green has hobbled in the fourth quarter of both of those games. Yeah. He's going to play, and the man is electric. Tigers defensive coordinator Jordan Hankins says, I think he's 3 inches taller and a lot faster and making more plays than he did with Boise State just a couple of years ago. The guy is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And this defense for the Tigers, they have not given up a point in the last 6 quarters and only 1 second-half touchdown all year, all with new faces. The only touchdown they gave up against Troy was a fumble return by that Trojan defense. So I just think that it's one of those games that, it's gone from 3.5 to 8 or 8.5 or whatever. But if this Tiger defense can contain, because they've given up some big plays on defense, but Jordan Hankins, I had one of the better quotes so far this football season. He said, I only care about 2 lines on a football field, and that's the 2 goal lines. Yes. I don't care if my guys give up 99 yards. If they make a stop at the 1, that's all I care about. So give up big plays, but do it and keep the Hogs out of the end zone. And I think we're going to be talking about another close game, and who knows, maybe Arkansas is going to cancel both of the other games left on this series if they lose on that.
Probably so, the way this was going. Mike Sadie, phenomenal job breaking down not only this football game, but all the other teams that are close to your area. You sit in a really nice melting pot, and you do a beautiful job being able to analyze all of them the way that they are now, and obviously your historical perspective as well. Thank you so much for joining us here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Thanks, guys. You have a great day. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Mike Sadie out of Memphis, out of the Next Star Nation here. And honestly, Patrick, I thought that was a phenomenal breakdown. And I think that Taylon Green stat line, not a lot of people will know that going into the matchup. The fact that the Arkansas starting quarterback has more experience on that field than the Memphis starting quarterback does. makes for an interesting dynamic going into that game.
Hey, I mean, all Memphis has to do is just look and see what the Ohio Bobcats did to West Virginia when they came to Athens, Ohio. That's all they got to do is just see, hey, here's a team out of the MAC taking down the Big 12.
Yep.
The SEC could be in trouble if they lose that game, though.
A lot of respect there for the teams out of the American. We've already seen it with South Florida going to the Swamp, getting a win. Could we see it again with Memphis Tigers getting a win over Arkansas at home? Well, who knows what's to happen there in Oxford, Mississippi, as Tulane goes there as well. A lot of interesting matchups there between the American and the SEC. Thank you to Mike Sadie for his expert analysis there. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we break down more games here coming up this weekend here next on our show. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Obviously, a great Wednesday here. It's a hump day, and we're kind of officially over the games of last week and looking forward to the games coming up this week. Have a chance to catch up with our guy Kevin Ryans once again. We talked to you right before the big rivalry matchup between Missouri and Kansas, and obviously Missouri got a win there. They're still there in the top 25. Number one, how are you, man? I know it's a really busy time as you cross over sports, not just football.
Yeah, we have a lot going on in St. Louis. Baseball is coming to a close. Cardinals, unfortunately, not having the best of seasons, but then you got the college football, you got the high school football, and then hockey starting in the next few days. Training camp starts tomorrow, and then before you know it, they're going to have their first preseason game, the St. Louis Blues. So we have a lot going on here in St. Louis, but always good to talk some college football in Missouri.
Okay, before we dive into college football, I did want to ask, because I'm for cities that I haven't spent a ton of time in, I'm really interested in the way that the fans, like the fan energy between the different programs and the different I would guess the Cardinals probably have the most love just because they've been there for the longest. They've had a lot of success. But as far as if you were to rate how passionate the fans are between the Blues, the Cardinals, the Tigers, when the Rams were there, if you were in St. Louis at the time, just rank for me from a St. Louis perspective of the way that those teams generate that fan base and make people really excited about their sports.
Yeah, for sure. The Cardinals will always be number one. They've been struggling the last few years, so the fans have been pretty annoyed at how they've been playing. particularly the last 3 seasons that they missed the postseason. So, yeah, so I would say they have the biggest fan base. The not too popular though at the moment with how they're playing on the field. The Blues have taken that mantle as the big second team, but when they were going good, they're about as popular as any team in this area, especially 2019 when they won the Stanley Cup. The Rams had recently left a few years prior. And so the kind of showing the sports world that St. Louis can win championships and show out for their team is a huge deal for St. Louis, and they really rallied behind the Blues. The Blues have been extremely popular, very big hockey town here in St. Louis. So they've been extremely popular for a long time. When the Rams were here and when they were good, the greatest show on turf, they're probably number one when they were, because at that time the Cardinals weren't very good. Yeah. And so when the Rams were at their peak, and that wasn't very long, and they weren't very good for for much of the time they were in St. Louis. They were the one of the top teams. But the Cardinals, because of their history, essentially you can compare their history with like the New York Yankees. Yeah. When you have a team like that pedigree, that's always going to be your number one team.
Absolutely. Let's dive back into this college football matchup between Missouri and South Carolina. This is a battle for the Mayor's Cup, and I think a lot of people almost every year they're like, "Oh yeah, they play for a trophy over there." The two schools that sit in a city called Columbia going into this matchup. What do you make of this year's matchup, considering not only Missouri's nice start, but the kind of the downfall so far right now, given South Carolina's injury to their star quarterback?
It'd be very interesting. You have a South Carolina team that lost to Vanderbilt. Of course, everything is up in the air. Shane Beamer very coy about the situation regarding Lenora Sellers. So I am interested in seeing it. This is a game that Mizzou was losing last year over in Columbia, South Carolina, 21-6, battled back to take the lead a couple of times, including at the end. And then South Carolina ended up winning that game. And it kind of stifled Missouri's chances of making the college football playoff. And I got to imagine that South Carolina has a lot riding on this game. If they lose a couple of times, maybe their chances of making the playoff fall. So there's going to be a lot of excitement and a lot of competition going into this game. And they have kind of force-fed this game into becoming a rivalry. Because of the way the nature of the two cities being named Columbia, they called the trophy the Mayor's Cup Trophy. So a trophy game. Eli Drinkwitz, ever since he's been here, he always likes the idea of having a trophy game to rile up his base, and so they're going to be bringing it on Saturday.
No question about it. We will come right back after a quick short break. We will hear a little bit more from Kevin as well as from Coach Eli Drinkwitz right after the break. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Pleased to be joined by Kevin Ryans out of St. Louis. Let's break down this Mayor's Cup game even more as Missouri gets ready to play South Carolina. This has been kind of a one-sided rivalry over the, I'd say the last few games for sure. 5 of 6 going the way of the Missouri Tigers. There you see the overall numbers. Missouri leads 9-6 overall. What do you think from a mentality standpoint? Missouri walks into the league, they get their rivalry kind of given to them by the league, and then they go out and dominate it.
Yeah, it's very important for Mizzou to, they of course they have no natural rivals in the SEC, but whenever they can make it to a rivalry, if they can dominate that rivalry and kind of have their presence in the SEC, I think that's important for them. They've always been trying to find their place. I think ever since they moved to the conference, and of course they had those 2 SEC East championship years under Gary Pinkel early on in their tenure, so they kind of established themselves there. Well, but it's been rocky since, and now that they're back up and coming, they really want to establish themselves. And what better than to go up against another really good team in South Carolina when all healthy and try to win. And they dominated this rivalry and go out there and win again.
Absolutely. We got a chance to hear from head coach Eli Drinkwitz about this matchup and not letting the team on the other side dictate the way they play.
Yeah, I think as you elevate your program, we talk about being 1-0 every week and the importance of a nameless, faceless opponent. And last week I think the focus was not to allow our opponent to dictate our preparation or performance, and I thought our guys really responded to that. Our guys understand the significance of playing in the SEC. They understand that the level of competition raises, the importance of all the little things rises. They understand the importance of being 1-0, this week. I don't really think we have to hammer that or say that. I think that's been the enhanced growth of the program over the last 3 years. It's a SEC night game. We've only had 3 since 2021, while others in the league have had way more than that. It's an awesome opportunity for us to take advantage of that. But the reality of it is, the separations and the preparation you put in this week, and the most important thing we can control is have toughness Tuesday, not trying to play on emotions on Saturday.
Kevin, I want to ask about the offense because it's been a strong suit for Missouri. It was a strong suit last year, as you mentioned, Luther Burden on the team. But, Bo Perbula's done really well coming over from Penn State. What have you seen so far in 2025?
Yeah, it's super balanced. Not only are they doing it in the air, but they're doing it on the ground. Last week, they had 420 rush yards against Louisiana, an inferior opponent, a team that they should beat, but still pretty impressive. 250 of those yards came from Ahmad Hardy, so a transfer running back that they got. They've been very impressive on that front offensively, running the ball. And then Bo Perbula, that was the big question going into his tenure year at Missouri when he was battling with Sam Horn all spring and summer for that starting job. Was he going to be able to sling it? And he has shown that he can throw really, really well with the best of the quarterbacks in the country. He's, top figures in some of the categories for quarterbacks so far this year. He's been really well. He's developed chemistry with tight end Brett Norfleet. He's developed chemistry with some of his receivers. Kevin Coleman comes to mind. They talk about all the time about how well they work together. And so I've been very impressed with this Mizzou offensive attack, both passing and rushing.
Absolutely. Final thing before we let you go, Coach mentioned this a minute ago, the fact that they have not played a night game in a really long time, and then he made the aside that a bunch of other teams had. Being a night game in a rivalry matchup, what do you make of what the atmosphere will be in this game for Missouri and being able to handle that going into that matchup there in prime time?
Yeah, if it's anything like what they've been drawing the first couple of games, man, I expect it to be as electric as it has been. Particularly that Kansas game comes to mind, and how incredible the atmosphere was in that crowd. Eli Drinkwitz has said, this is the SEC now. We can bring it up for Kansas. We can bring it up for game 1 of the year. But we, in this portion of the schedule, when we really need the home games to matter, we need the electricity to come from the fans. And so he's calling all the fans to go out there and bring it on Saturday.
Missouri is a 10.5-point favorite as we sit as prime time there. It's an interesting matchup between Missouri and South Carolina for the Mayor's Cup. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here on Southeast Sports Plus.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. Kevin Ryan's out of St. Louis. He's a very, very busy guy. There's a busy sports department right over there because, like he mentioned, you have the Blues, you got the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals, their season is about to end, but and then this huge game here in the Mayor's Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big hockey guy, so growing up, I used to back in the David Backus days. I know that's a name that I don't think Blues fans really like to hear anymore after their captain left for Boston, but they used to have David Backus, Yaroslav Halak in net.
Yep.
TJ Oshie out on the wing. Sorry, TJ Sochi from the Olympics in 2014.
That's right.
You remember? Are you a big hockey guy? I don't know if I've ever really asked you this.
Not necessarily. I mean, I am in the playoffs. I chose the Kraken when they first joined.
That's right.
From the expansion league, but I did it mainly to have a team because I honestly I've always told Simone this. I've told all my other sports friends this. The fact that there's no other sport that I love being immersed in more than playoff hockey.
Yes.
I just can't really get into it because when the season starts, it's still football season. The middle of the year, you're still in the middle of football, going into basketball, and then by the time March rolls around, you're already thinking about the playoffs. And so I am, but not as intently as I would like to be, moving forward.
I think I told you at one point back when I first met you, I think I said something like playoff hockey is the best playoff sport, period. I will not take any exceptions. The close second for me is baseball, and then it goes NFL, and then it goes – or actually, no, I'm putting NFL at the bottom. I'm going to make it NBA third because NFL, to me, it just feels like a normal game.
Yeah. And it almost feels like not necessarily a coin flip, but the playoffs do feel like, it is a kind of any given Sunday, and you don't always get the best representative sample of who all would win each and every week. Final thoughts from today's show. Got lots of great insight here, not only from our guests, but also just the stuff that we were able to bring up. What are your final insights here from this hump day?
Simone went off the rails with her hot takes. That'll stick with me.
I love it.
That one will 100% stick with me.
I love it. So thank you to all of our guests on today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow from 2 to 4 o'clock on Southeast Sports Plus. See you then.